What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS Game Day Playbook Live Show. Today, you're looking at the Monday 6-game main slate. We appreciate you all tuning in over on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel, over on the Fantasy Alarm X channel there as well. Want to give us a quick like, share, retweet, whatever you want to call it. It is a free way to support the work we do here over at Fantasy Alarm. James, you were on the playbook here today. You were the man of the hour. How are we feeling about tonight's slate?
I mean, it's interesting because, it's a smaller slate. I really like these smaller slates. I'm not a like lover of the bigger slates personally. I feel like you can get way more into the weeds with these smaller slates, and that's given. There's like give and take with that because when you look at the ownership, we're focused on two teams today, right? It's all centered around two teams. And when you're talking DFS, well, is that good chalk or bad chalk? And are you going to play the chalk? Are you going to fade the chalk? And which chalk do you want to play? Which chalk do you want to fade? And if you're fading it, where do you see like leverage on other teams, right? So tonight, with only 6 games on the main slate kicking off at 7:40, everyone likes Twins and everyone likes Astros. And, those things are fine, but I do think that there is definitely some leverage to be had on tonight's slate.
Yep.
Some good pitching at all the tiers, not necessarily just at the top. I think there's solid options everywhere. So obviously I feel pretty good. It's just, right now I have somewhat of a fade of most of the chalk, not all of it, but some of it. So we'll see how it plays out. But overall, pretty good idea of what's going on tonight.
All right. If you guys have any questions during today's show about lineups, bets, plays, values, fades, you name it, throw it in the chat. James and I more than happy to get you guys going here today. Our guy Don saying what's good. Happy to have you in the chat with us here today, Don. I'm sure we'll get to whatever questions you got for us this evening. James, let's start off. The cover of today's live stream, Logan Gilbert. I know that he's in your playbook today as well. When it comes to the top starters on today's slate, you have Cease at 10-3, Gilbert 9,800, Rodon at 88, Lugo's 84, and Berrios at 8K is your top 5 starting price-wise over on DraftKings. What are your thoughts here today there?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, there's obviously like those 5 guys are over 8K, but I think there's a pretty big gap between 1 and 2 and then the other 3. And honestly, I like Logan Gilbert today. I really like Dylan Cease. I don't think there's anyone on the slate that has just as much upside as Dylan Cease does today. When you look at, first off, props and websites only are numbers, right? And we can only base things off that. But when a guy's strikeout prop is set at 8.5, and that's the baseline of the number, there is a lot of projected strikeouts to come from that pitcher, right? Like that's a big number. Like we don't often see 8.5 strikeouts as a baseline and almost even money at that. So I think that says a lot. We talked about it on the pre-show. Logan Gilbert's strikeouts have obviously been kind of disappointing lately. Sure. And when you look at Dylan Cease, yes, he has hit somewhat of like this little rut, right? Where he hasn't really been dominant. There's been a lot of, earned runs in there. Well, like things are kind of suggested on his front that it could be even better. Like his expected ERA, his expected FIP are both pretty low compared to his ERA. His walks this year are way down and the strikeouts are still up. So he's just been a little bit unlucky. So he faces a team that strikes out a bunch and is in bottom 10 in every offensive category against right-hand pitching. So I like Cease over Gilbert. I understand those that want to save $500 to get to Gilbert. I understand, like, in theory, like, the White Sox are obviously the worst team of the two matchups. But, and you and I have kind of touched on it in the shows that we've done lately. White Sox have hit a lot of home runs lately.
Yeah.
They're actually top 5 in ISO over the last 2 weeks, which I found a little
You
surprising.
get Luis Robert back, right? That happens a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Luis Robert and pretty much feast or famine in the whole lineup, right? Paul DeJong, Gavin Sheets, like Andrew Vaughn has started hitting home runs. Like they have a lot of guys that are high home run hitting players at times, and also high strikeout players. So,
Sure.
I lean Cease and Gilbert over the field. I lean over the other 3 rather. I lean Cease over Gilbert specifically at the top. If you want to sprinkle in some Rodon or Lugo, that's fine. And you talked about on the show, not a lot of interest here in Jose Barrios. It's not a fun spot for him.
Yeah. We had a question obviously here from Don thinking about going. I'm guessing this is Fetty and Barrios today at pitcher.
Freddie and Berries.
Freddie and Berries.
Yeah, I like that.
Listen, Eric Fetty's kind of an interesting spot, obviously with the strikeouts we talked about. His last year he was out of Major League Baseball. He was very bad with the Nationals, out of Major League Baseball, went to the KBO, won 20 games in the KBO, had a whole bunch of strikeouts over there, and he's come over here, and a lot of that is kind of translated. You go look over on Fangraphs, and they show you, his peripheral stats are kind of in line with what we've seen of him as a pitcher. Strikeouts of late have been pretty good. 7 strikeouts against the Cubs, 8 strikeouts against the Brewers. And now we have a team in Seattle, highest strikeout rate in baseball against right-handed pitching. It's just whether or not you think there is any chance for wins here today, knowing that he's going up against Gilbert. That's a really tough spot to be on the other side of that matchup. So if you want to be contrarian today and you're going Cease and you want to throw Fetty in there, that's fine, because if the ownership, which I just threw the updated ownership in chat, there's 3 pitchers on DraftKings people are playing today. They're deciding between Cease and Gilbert, and then they're going down to Chris Paddock, who our guy Justin popped in there and asked about Paddock and Arrighetti. You and I highlighted Chris Paddock on the show this morning with the preview show. Another guy that you go look at the peripheral numbers, and they're much better than what his actual numbers are suggesting they are. The 5.26 ERA, the 1.4 WHIP, not great. You go look over on Fangraphs, and he's kind of sitting in the low 4s, high 3s in some of those numbers here today. So going up against Colorado, a team that struggles against righties on the road this year. A lot of people putting their eggs in the basket of Chris Paddock this evening.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting one, because you just talked about Eric Fetty and then you talked about Chris Paddock, and I think that there's an interesting, like, Fetty I think is a great pivot off of Chris Paddock, right? Yeah. He's more expensive, and you just talked about it. Like, there's obviously more win equity with Paddock. He's one of the biggest favorites. I think he's tied at minus 230 on the day. But is he 12, or is he like, should he be that much more rostered than Eric Fetty, who has the clear advantage in terms of like strikeout upside in the spot that he's at against a team that, again, strikes out more than any other team in Major League Baseball against right-handed
it's
pitching.
a win equity thing. Obviously, Minnesota minus 210 on the money line tonight, so you're getting Paddock and what most people perceive to be a good matchup anyways. Add in the fact that they're huge favorites, Minnesota, today. They get those really coveted win points. The 4 points can be the difference between not cashing and cashing in almost every format. So
or winning a tournament.
Winning a tournament, exactly. So I think that's why you're seeing that. But also, when we're on smaller slates generally mean less available value that you can put in other positions. So if you can get that at the pitcher spot, then I think you'll see people go in that direction. Our guy Myron mentioning Tovar. Tovar's obviously on another level right now. Certainly some guys in the Colorado lineup can do some damage here today. It's a good spot to be contrarian if you want to go against a 30% rostered Paddock today and throw in a Tovar McMahon 2-stack or something like that today. Certainly can give it a go. But, just looking at the current rostership, like it is a 3-man story about where pitching is today. And then you kind of sprinkle in, I guess, some of the other, options that you want to go there. Do you have any interest in a guy like Carlos Rodon today at his price point?
I have 4 guys written down in the playbook, and we've already talked about them. Cease Gilbert, Eric Fetty, and Chris Paddock. Like, I think there's obvious reason why you'd want to get to Rodon. I mean, he had a lost season last year, didn't look like himself after an elite year that got him a massive contract. And now look, he's fully healthy and he looks great, right? He looks like the guy the Yankees paid $1
Hope to
billion
sign.
for.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and you want to talk about win equity. I mean, nobody in baseball has, like, right now when, Aaron Judge is doing what he's doing and Soto obviously not playing, but I'm okay with it in tournaments. Same thing with Lugo on the flip side. Like, I'm okay with it, but I just I saw there was a question. I think Justin had a question about Eric Getty.
yeah.
I mean, putting your faith in a guy with a 5 walk per 9 is like good ballpark to pitch in. But it's just been so up and down. Peripheral numbers suggest a little bit of positive regression coming his way. The strikeouts have been good for Eric Getty, but how deep is he going to get into the game? I mean, if he's pitching, 5 walks per 9 innings is ludicrous, dude. That's very hard to trust.
It is very hard to trust. We talk a lot about, left on base numbers, and guys at high strikeout rates do generally have a high, less left on base average, but walking 5 per 9 is just when you're pitching 5 innings, like it's, those walk numbers are pretty crazy as they are. He's been fortunate the last couple of starts to not get completely shelled, but you also look at some of the matchups for him there. He's been fortunate enough to keep the ball in the yard to really prevent a lot of that damage. He had 3 homers to the Yankees, but other than that, overall, he's been pretty good with the home run ball. You want to look at the Giants here against right-handed pitching, 8% walk rate, just a 21% strikeout rate. They don't hit for any power, 129 ISO, so maybe that continues to kind of help him limit some of that damage. But again, not really my favorite spot. If we're just looking at the Vegas odds here today, I mentioned Minnesota minus 210 this morning. They're up to minus 240. Favorites to the highest favorite on the board today, which again I think leans towards Paddock's rostership there. Seattle's minus 215, San Diego minus 230. So again, what did I say? Cease, Gilbert, Paddock are your highest 3 roster starting pitchers. That's exactly why. Daniel Papadin saying you need Cease to get 7 strikeouts, probably on that prop here today. And again, we know the ceiling can be there, well over strikeout per inning guy. Any other thoughts on pitching today?
No.
Mark's liking the double spend, which you can get it done at the double spend. Let's go up to the catcher spot. Where are we looking to go today?
I'm looking to move on to the next position because this is horrible. So I think that there's a couple of routes you can go. Obviously, like Yander Diaz in the lefty-righty split. Kyle Harrison's been not as good as not as good as people expected him to be. Righties hit him pretty hard. Lefties hit him pretty hard, which is why I think there's Astros love coming in. But Diaz makes a lot of sense there at $3,700. Freddie Fermin hits lefties well at $34. You have Patrick Bailey, who will hit near the top of the lineup against Eric Getty. He's fine. And then I think an interesting play is Kyle Higashioka if he's starting. He has it's a small sample. He's a 300 ISO against right-handed pitching this year. And you're going to hear me mention this a lot because I just put a short over on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube as well. And obviously, the cover of the pre-show was Fernando Tatis. The cover of my playbook today was Jurickson Profar and Jake Cronenworth. Hint, hint, I really like the Padres tonight. And that's because Joey Estes is allowing a 57% fly ball rate. And back-to-back seasons of over 2 home runs per 9 innings in AAA. That's not a recipe for long-term success in the major leagues. And when you have 50% fly ball rate and like a next to nothing home run rate, there's like nothing kind of suggesting like that those two things are gonna continue to like be separate. The marriage of home runs and fly balls are going to come. So plus San Diego, 3rd best team in the league against right-handed pitching is
all right, I don't think Fetty's going to get 5 walks. That was Eric Getty.
Eric Getty, Fetty. I know we're dropping bars over here, and like with that's just typical of the show.
Yeah. That's 5 walks per 9, by the way. So like Eric Getty, if he pitched a complete game, would get 5 walks.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But definitely not Eric Fetty. Fetty is not walking that many this year. Because smaller slate, if you go look at our ownership, Christian Vasquez is actually our highest roster catcher today. It's just a pure punt play. It's just forget the catcher and move on. To that fact, he did homer the other day. He's got hits in 3 straight games. He's 2,400. This is a straight. I'm taking the 0 at catcher because I want to spend up elsewhere, and this is the cheapest guy I can get in my lineup.
And it's the Twins ownership just rearing its head. You're gonna hear that's gonna be a very common theme because Twins are just at every position.
Against Hudson here.
Yeah, I mean it's just they're so popular.
Let's move on to first base then. First base up top as Vladdy at 5K. Again, on a smaller slate, Carlos Santana, $3,900 coming in with some love today. Where are you going at first base?
This is like the one spot that I'm okay getting to Minnesota. I mean, they just haven't been really that. I get the matchup. They just haven't been that good against right-handed pitching specifically this year. I do like Santana. He's been really good lately over the last 30 days, 793 OPS, 203 ISO. Lefties have been good against Dakota Hudson. That's been like the one specific thing that we can write off. Like Dakota Hudson, bad against lefties. I will say, for what it's worth, for all like the Twins love, and if you've watched the show with John and I, you know this is typically a Twins podcast. Like Dakota Hudson hasn't been terrible away from Coors Field this year, and the Twins are just like not playing well right now.
Right.
Outside of one big explosion this past weekend, so I'm like not all in on the Twins. Like I'm okay with getting to them. I do like certain spots. Like I like Carlos Santana because first base is shallow, and he's been one of their better hitters over the last month. But man, the Twins' love is, I feel like, a little exaggerated, and that was my opening rant. Like I think that the Twins are fine as a team. I think they went on that crazy streak earlier in the year and got everyone hyped. Royce Lewis came back and hit home runs in every game he's played, and it's kind of just been like this. Like nobody's really. Willie Castro is leading off tonight. Willie Castro is way better against left-handed pitching. So like, I get it. He's another new toy at the top of the order, but like Santana's solid, and then the rest of the Twins, I'm like kind of lukewarm on.
Sure. All right. Well, then where else are you going at first? Anybody else?
No, another position that just kind of stinks. I think Luis Arraez at 46 makes some sense. Just given how good he's been against right-handed pitching this year, given how good he's just been in general, hitting 330. Yeah, he's a better play on FanDuel where he's significantly cheaper.
Yeah.
But 4,600 is fine if you're stacking Padres. So between Arraez, Santana, sprinkles of Kirilloff because you get the dual position eligibility. That's really it. Unfortunate that this isn't a FanDuel podcast because I could talk about first base forever because all the most.
Yeah, I agree. Second base then. I got Altuve versus lefty at 51. Schneider, Turang up top. Cronenworth versus Estes at 43. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely get to Altuve, who's been looking pretty good of late, especially over the weekend. Hits in 3 straight, back-to-back double-digit fantasy point games. So Altuve is solid. Not a lot of interest in Davis Schneider. I like the lefties against Colin Ray. I think Bryce Turang is very interesting. Just we know how good he is when he gets on the base paths. Like,
yeah, still hitting over 300 is wild to me. I mean, good on him. Obviously, I just didn't expect him to keep it up. Though, off that hot start that he got off to, and then 4 stolen bases over the last 10, 23 on the year. I mean, for sure, a guy that I think has surprised many and still is good, solid play.
Yeah, and he's even up that 300 average because 389 over his last 10. Like he's scorching hot. I like Cronenworth quite a bit, $4,300. The Padres, as I mentioned, are really good against right-handed pitching. Cronenworth himself, 850 OPS, over a 500 slug, 223 ISO against right-handed pitching this year. Coming alive a little bit too. Hits in 4 straight, couple extra base hits, couple RBIs. So 4,300 for Cronenworth. And I guess like I should be interested in Willie Castro, but I'll defer to you. Like he's obviously there's multi-position eligibility in play here. That's good.
Yeah.
He's leading off. That's great. But then you look
It's not the right
695
split for him.
OPS. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a 695 OPS, 23% strikeout rate, 149 ISO. Like, what's your take on Castro leading off?
Right. The only benefit to a righty on the mound would be maybe there's some stolen base upside with him, especially as a leadoff guy. But the guy did steal with 33, 35 last year, something like that. But
He did run a lot.
so maybe that gives him that advantage. But again, not a guy I'm going to outside of a Minnesota stack. I think I could get the IKF. I mean, another continues to hit at $3,400. Again, he's not flashy, he's not exciting, he's not gonna hit for a ton of power or steal bases, but Colin Ray is an average MLB pitcher. There's nothing spectacular there. And if IKF is going to keep on just getting on base and giving himself opportunities to be productive, then sure, $3,400 for him is a value play. I think you can go to, and then obviously there's cheaper guys down here on the Royals if you want to take a stab, but nothing for me that's like jumping off the page.
I got one, and he's a Blue Jay in Spencer Horwitz. I think there's some interest there. He's super cheap, nearly min salary, and he was the reason they paved the way for him once they sent
Kevin
packing at AAA this year for Horwitz. 335 average, 970 OPS. He has 38 RBIs in 57 games. Not necessarily like a power guy, not really a speed guy, but he's a very, very good contact hitter. And hitting 330 at AAA does in back-to-back years, might I add, hitting 330 in AAA. So I have a little bit of interest in Horwitz because when you think about Colin Ray, this is the right split against Colin Ray. Colin Ray cannot get lefties out.
No, I agree. And again, 2 games for Horwitz. Obviously, he's gotten on base in both of those games. A walk and a hit against Oakland the other day. So you'll take 4 points at $2,600 for sure. Third base, Royce Lewis up at the top, $5,900 as your overall guy here. Do you have a favorite target at third today?
I mean, you can definitely play Royce Lewis. I will not. He's like a twin. What can I say about? I'm not gonna fight you on Royce Lewis. He's an elite power hitter when he's healthy, right? Or elite grand slam hitter, I should say.
Well, got to get guys on front of him, right?
So you could definitely play Lewis. I think my favorite target, and this may be a little surprising, maybe not if you listen to the pre-show, is Joey Ortiz. Looking at things, one, Jose Barrios has allowed righties to hit 280 this year. So I found that interesting because he's been notoriously bad against lefties. And the lefty power is still there. But 280 against righties this year. Then you look at the Brewers against right-handed pitching. Joey Ortiz leads their team in OPS against right-handed pitching. 930 OPS against righties. 210 ISO is second on the team. 402 WOBA, the only player over 400, only player over 390. That's 139 plate appearance sample. The guy's hitting 284, and the Brewers have been really good offensively, so he kind of gets, I think, overshadowed. Plus, this is like first year for getting like this much playing time. Mm-hmm. I like Joey Ortiz in the split against Barrios. Doesn't really strike out. Barrios is not missing as many bats, and he's had elite numbers against right-handed pitching. So, sure. Give me some Joey Ortiz as one of my favorite third basemen of the day.
Yeah, I have no problems with that. Obviously, again, you have some guys at the top. You have Machado. I know you're in on the Padres here today. McMahon on Paddock at 45. If you want to go there as well, but getting the mid-tier play on Ortiz certainly makes some sense. Shortstop. Where's our targets here today?
I mean, you could definitely play Bobby Witt if you want, right? I don't think there's any problem getting there despite the matchup. He's matchup proof at this point. 400 average over his last 10, 320 on the year. The spiel. Don't need to dive too much into it. Volpe had his 34 game on base streak broken yesterday. Maybe he'll start a new streak again today. If you want to do like a 2-man Volpe Judge at the top of that Yankees lineup, that's fine. I saw a comment. I think it was Myron who talked about Ezekiel Tovar. I mean, he's been He has been really good. You talked about him pretty extensively on the show this morning.
Yeah, there's an article that came out, or maybe it was a tweet. They're all the same to me these days. So basically, he eliminated a leg kick to help with his timing, and obviously since then he's been phenomenal this year. Really having a breakout sophomore season after a pretty good rookie year. I mean, no knock on him last year, but already 10 homers. I expected him maybe to run a little bit more, but 4 stolen bases on the year. Nothing too bad there. And again, if you're not in on Paddock, because listen, we can say all the peripheral numbers we want on Chris Paddock. The fact is that he's not pitching to those. He's getting hammered. Right. And there are plenty of times where guys do not pitch to what the sabermetric numbers would suggest. So Paddock could go out there, give up 6 today and just get hammered like he's been the last handful of starts, and then the Rockies will go and break the slate here today. So if you want to get in, like I mentioned, a 2-man stack, McMahon, Tovar, maybe throw a Brenton Doyle or something like that in there as well. You can definitely do some Rockies if you're anti-chalk Paddock here today. Your guy Horowitz hitting second today, by the way. Blue Jays lineup just came out, $2,600, hitting second for the Toronto Blue Jays.
That just feels. Feels pretty good, no?
Yeah, no doubt. IKF hitting 8th. Kirk is your catcher there today. They got Vogelbach at DH. But Horowitz hitting second. Schneider leading off there. So
you know how you want to get Colin Ray or lefties against Colin Ray when you see Horowitz hitting second and Vogelbach hitting 5th.
Yeah.
We're gonna they'll get a we want. That's what the Yankees did with Trent Grisham yesterday, and
they only have 3 lefties on their team. It looks like, right? So Horowitz, Vogelbach, and Varsho. So so that's not bad. It's good value. We'll probably just plug that in now, right?
Yeah, we're plugging the Horowitz.
We'll just plug that in now. All right. So again, if you want to go up and spend up, you certainly can. You got Adames versus right at home versus righty. You've talked about Barrios' numbers there. It is the right split there for Adames. Pena against Harrison at 41. I've been on Ha-Seong Kim again lately. The power's been there. We know we can steal bags. So definitely feels like more playable guys at short than some of the other positions here today.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think that mid-tier range that you just mentioned, like from Adames, cross out Fitzgerald and act like he doesn't there, to Kim, all makes sense. Like even Correa, if you're playing Minnesota, right, hitting in the middle of their lineup, he's been a little bit better of late. But Adames and obviously the best. We say this all the time if you're first-time listeners. Weirdly enough, Willy Adames has talked about being able to see in Milwaukee and not being able to see when he played in Tampa Bay. And he only hits righties. So righties in Milwaukee is the split. That's where we are for this game.
Yeah.
Adames, the Correa thing for Minnesota stacks. Pena's elite against left-handed pitching. If you want to play Jeremy Pena, I think that's perfectly fine. Hits in the middle of their lineup with Tucker on the IL. He's protection for Jordan Alvarez. So we're going to get pitches to hit. And then Ha-Seong Kim, you mentioned he's been great. And the power department, he's been really good against righties this year. And that's like obviously been more recent. 762 OPS, 178 ISO, 336 WOBA. So just more Padres to like, but I definitely think you're spot on with your like, wish I could play 2 of these. Wish there was a util spot to play 2 of them, but
agreed. Ryan, do you like the over/under 6.5 Ks for Gilbert here today? What do you think here, James?
I mean, this is tough because he's not striking guys out, but he's facing a lineup that has increased their strikeout rate since Luis Robert has been back. Like it's a very tricky thing.
I wrote up Gilbert today for my prize picks plays, I believe. It was either underdog or prize picks. I did underdog, sleeper, and the prize picks are all out on Fantasy Alarm. But I did his fantasy score. It was like 32.5 points, I think.
I mean, that's over, but like that's quality start and win you're baking in there, right? Yeah. Like you're baking in both those things. So 6.5. I mean, he threw 7 innings against a high strikeout offense in Oakland and had 5. I'm not saying like every appearance is different, but like that just goes to show you where Gilbert has been like in the strikeout department. I'd probably stay away from it. If I had a lean, I'd probably say under, but I'd probably stay away from it.
Okay. Let's go to the outfield. Unless you have any other shortstops.
I don't think there was anything necessary to talk about.
All right. Then the outfield, there is Fernando Tatis here. We've talked about it. Tatis Tatis is kind of always been this way. Like right, he just hits righties. Like he hits them really well. This year he's hitting over 300 against righties. All his powers come against right-handed pitching. He's on like a ridiculous hit streak right now. It was in 15 games or something like that. 5,500. Cover the pre-show. Yeah, you're playing Padres. It's your contrarian play today because we all think that we thought last night they were in an elite spot, and now we're getting no ownership on them. Only makes us love them even more.
Yeah, I mean it is hard. Like career high hitting streak for him. The 15 games you mentioned. The power is seemingly coming back, and he's really kind of back to like that full blown like wow. Other than maybe lagging a little bit in the stolen base category, I would say that's probably the only place where we're not getting like full blown Tatis is back mode. But the RBIs have been great. The runs have been great. So it's like neither you or I are going to sit here and be like, well, why aren't you talking about Aaron Judge? Well, like, duh, he's the best player in baseball. Like, you can play Aaron Judge if you want. Yankees might score 2 runs and it might be 2 solo shots off Seth Lugo for Aaron Judge. Like
Padres lineup is out. No Higashioka tonight. It's Campusano.
Okay.
They have Donovan Solano at third. Machado is DHing today.
He's back. So after 5-game absence, he's back.
Yep. Ha-Seong Kim's hitting 8th in front of Campusano, so they got him all the way down the lineup there. Luis Arraez leading off, obviously. Tatis and Profar 2-3. So,
I mean, I love like the 2 through 8 there. I mean, if you even want to punt with Campusano, that's fine. But
yeah, I mean, Profar obviously was one of our favorite plays of the day here today as well. 4,200.
Yep.
We were going to be plugging him in. You can go Judge and Soto, obviously, if they're in the lineup. Now, Lugo's obviously pitched really well, but they're Judge and Soto, so no arguments going there. Where else are you looking in the outfield today?
So I think, like, just excluding Soto, I'm a little indifferent about Soto. I don't know if he's going to play. Yesterday, he probably wasn't available, is what Aaron Boone said yesterday to pinch hit. So I can't imagine he plays. So excluding him, I think any of the top 4 names are extremely viable. I think all 4 of them make for very good plays. Then when you get like into the 4K tier, I don't like a ton. You mentioned Profar. He's an elite play in whatever format you want to get to. 891 OPS, only trails Luis Arraez against right-handed pitching. So, obviously hitting third in that lineup is elite. Kepler, you're playing Twins, is obviously a play at $4,500. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate to that. And then Trevor Larnach at $4,000 was the expected leadoff man. He's another Twin that I'm perfectly fine getting to. He's been good against right-handed pitching this year, and he's in the better part of that split. Like Dakota Hudson struggles against lefties. Larnach is solid at 4K. So,
Angela, I would never willingly pitch anybody against Baltimore. So I mean, it doesn't mean they can't go out there and have a good start. They certainly can, but I'm not going to go out there and willingly pitch anybody against that lineup. Their offense is just too dangerous for me to trust there. So probably a no-go for Pepio here today. For me, I know he's not on the main slate. So, but just to answer that question for you, where are you at value today? Obviously, Houston has a lot of outfielders. Harrison against a lefty. As a lefty here, do you target any of those guys?
Houston is mostly where the value, I think, lies, just given how good they are against left-handed pitching, at least how they've been in their history. McCormick is coming alive. He has obviously had a pretty tough year after a dominant season last year against left-handed pitching. Yeah. He's come around back-to-back double-digit fantasy point games, so 3,600. He'll be fine. Myers is okay. I think Dubois might be my favorite of the 3. He's the cheapest, and he's had the best numbers this year against left-handed pitching, 800 OPS on the dot for Mauricio Dubois. So I would be good with all 3 of those guys if you want. Other than that, value, Helio Ramos, 3,900 is obviously exceeding all expectations. There's just no way that you could expect him to be this good.
You got Ramos, Luke Raley's there, Jackson Merrill down the bottom of that lineup. If you wanted to go in those directions, you can. Let's see. Anything else?
Renfroe, we just had a comment about a Royal stack. I don't hate the Renfro shout. I don't know if I'd go like full bore KC. I'm okay with it. Like the top 4 are good. Furman's fine. Renfro's fine. Blanco has like their best hitter against lefties. It's a small sample, but I don't know, man. Rodon's just been really good. Like if you wanted to do it, you can, but it's not my favorite stack of the day.
Yep.
But it's definitely a contrarian stack. I mean, I'm touting Padres because I'm not playing Twins. If you want to be different, like sure,
you go the
right?
Jake Cave revenge game?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, burst your bubble if you were.
The Prince wants a FanDuel pitcher. Listen, obviously FanDuel quality start points over there. You don't get tagged for basically anything but earn runs allowed, so you can basically live with some walks. I mean, it's Cesar Gilbert. They're the Prince. Gilbert probably has a better chance of going deeper into the games. But you have a higher strikeout ceiling with Cease. So whatever one fits your build there, depends. But we're going to go with Cease or Gilbert as the top 2 guys over on FanDuel, where you only need one. So you can go there.
Paddock, and if you want a cheap option, it's Paddock for sure.
Yeah,
7,800, $800 cheaper than Fetty over there again. So it's definitely Paddock.
I agree. All right, let's get a lineup build. Do we try Mark's? Not that question from Mark, but do we try the double spend?
Well, I think it becomes a lot easier with Spencer Horwitz hitting second.
Right.
I think becomes an option for us
because that gives us 3,900 per play. And we weren't really like outside. I mean, we weren't looking to spend a ton up, right?
Other than Tatis,
if we did Tatis and Profar, I guess Dubon would be our other guy too, right?
Yeah, Dubon's
3K.
You get Carlos Santana 38 is probably our first baseman.
Dubon, Profar.
So what was our punt catcher? Christian Vasquez.
Yeah, Christian Vasquez at 2,400. He has a 4K a play.
And Santana.
Yeah.
And the shortstop. Then we're living in that like mid-tier shortstop range. Which
we can get a wraparound with Ha-Seong Kim, I guess, right? Tatis at second.
238.
Yeah. And then that gives us a 4,400 third baseman, which I feel like we built this lineup last night, minus Horwitz, obviously. And we don't know if Bregman's going to play or not.
Minus the double spend, too. Well, we do have Ortiz to play, and then we have money if we wanted to go somewhere else.
Can we go up from Vasquez then? What's our catcher look like?
30.
Not really.
No.
Kirk is obviously hitting 9th. You'd have a 9-2 Toronto. Could go up from Dubon, I guess. What's 37?
McCormick.
Yeah, I can go McCormick. Can get another Kirilloff, but he's been terrible.
He's been quite bad.
Very bad. McCormick's fine.
And we also don't you also don't have to spend all your money. So if you wanted to, like, if you were, which we don't have to technically pick between McCormick or Dubois. Dubois been better this year, but like we're going to get that lineup later. We're going to know, okay, well, Dubois hitting 4th and McCormick's hitting 9th. We're going to probably
know if Bregman's in, right? If Bregman's playing, I'd play Bregman against Harrison there.
Yeah, and then you have Dubois and Bregman, right? And then that's just your
all right, so we'll leave the money to get to Bregman if he's in there with Ortiz there, and we'll leave this lineup as is. Again, we all appreciate you in there. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Building a GPP or more cash build. This is the GPP lineup, Aaron.
Yep.
For sure. Obviously, on a smaller slate, there's going to be some high rosterships. Gilbert's probably your cash game pitcher today if you're building a cash lineup, I would assume, along with Paddock. Cease feels more tournament play to me. We're not going with the chalk here. What we got?
Hold on a second.
What?
Is Buster only getting hacked now? Okay. Thank God.
Didn't we know he was getting hacked?
No. It was. I don't think it was Buster before, was it?
Yeah, it was Buster only. Yeah.
Okay. I was just looking at my lineups and I refreshed, and the official Buster only page reported Lindor traded to the Oakland Athletics, and I just
lost your mind. Yeah, no, he's being Buster Olney's being hacked right now, so don't look at Buster Olney's Twitter there. Aaron GVP is Rodon's got the lefty magic there, says go there. So, all right. Example lineup for everybody. We appreciate you all tuning in here today. If you want to give a like, give a share, give a subscription over on the Fantasy Farm YouTube page. We go live now every day, 5 p.m. Eastern time. We do a recorded show there to preview the night before. So be on the lookout for that. Me and Bender on the preview show. If you have any questions, get us in the Discord. Find us on Twitter. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, well, I don't know what you're waiting for here. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Use promo code Let's Go. Scan the QR code there on the screen as well. Get your first month for less than $20. Get access to our premium Discord and all of our all-pro products there. Again, less than $20 for your first month with promo code Let's Go when you go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Good luck with your lineups here, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Big 12-game slate on Tuesday. We'll see you then.